The White House is looking to speed up deportations by suspending a constitutional legal procedure known as habeas corpus.
The privilege of the writ of habeas corpus can be suspended in a time of invasion. So I would say that's an option we're actively looking at. Look, a lot of it depends on whether the courts do the right thing or not. At the end of the day, Congress passed a body of law.
Those who believe they are being unlawfully detained, a chance to challenge that detainment in court. It comes as a growing number of migrants and activists have filed for habeas corpus petitions in recent months. For a closer look at what this means, I'm joined by Wayne Unger, Associate Professor of Law at Quinnipiac University. Good morning to you.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Anne-Marie, and it's a pleasure to be here once again.
Yeah, well, we mentioned that it's being filed, but those wanting to challenge deportations. But let's explain more of how it's used within the legal system.
Sure. So the writ of habeas corpus quite loosely translates to produce the body in Latin. And it is not something that's unique to the United States. It's something that Canada's legal system also has and the English legal system also has. And the writ of habeas corpus, quite simply, is a process in which the detainee or the prisoner can challenge their detainment or their imprisonment. And so, in essence, you are arguing under a writ of habeas corpus that you have been unlawfully or unconstitutionally detained or imprisoned by the government.
We were just listening to White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller argue that it can be suspended, habeas corpus, at a time of invasion. And according to Article 1, Section 9, this is what he's talking about, the Constitution says the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus shall not be suspended unless when in cases of rebellion or invasion and public safety may requirement. What would the Trump administration need to prove in order for this to be considered a time of rebellion or invasion? And what's the bar for proof there?
So it's important to note that the writ of habeas corpus can only be suspended by Congress. So Article 1, Section 9 specifically refers to what Congress really cannot do. And so the president cannot suspend it unilaterally. Now, in the history of the United States, some presidents have attempted to do so, but in every instance, they've been overturned by the courts as an unconstitutional suspension. So in this case, what would Donald Trump have to do? Well, he would have to persuade Congress to suspend it. Or if he tried to suspend it himself, again, suspending it unilaterally, he would almost certainly have to prove to the court that it is a lawful suspension because Congress gave him the permission to do so, which they haven't, so it wouldn't be.
If it is suspended, then what does this mean for the rights of undocumented migrants in the United States? What happens?
Yes, so it's important to note that there are actually kind of two protections in the United States Constitution here that protect migrants in this way. And the first one is the writ of habeas corpus, so where they can challenge the lawfulness or the constitutionality of their imprisonment, or procedural due process. Now, procedural due process quite simply means that before government can take away your life, liberty, or property, it must give you notice and an opportunity to be heard. You must be able to present your case on why, in this particular circumstance, why you should not be deported. So in that regard, the procedural due process still affords migrants a right to be heard, but the writ of habeas corpus is one pathway for them to be heard. And if you suspend the writ of habeas corpus, it doesn't affect anything on the procedural due process front. So migrants would still, according to the Constitution, have a right to procedural due process.
Even if this is eliminated, then, Wayne, they would still have the right to be heard, if I'm understanding you correctly.
You're right. So in theory, the answer is yes. But what we've seen from the Trump administration is that the Trump administration has deported migrants before a court hearing can even take place.
Right.
And then they've essentially have shrugged their shoulders and said, well, we've already deported them, therefore they have no rights in court, which is actually, from a constitutional perspective, just totally inaccurate.
I know this is your field of expertise, so I'm asking you then, as you watch this play out in your country, what are you most concerned about?
So I'll speak from a personal experience here. So my mother is a refugee from Vietnam. And so I have a certain viewpoint on immigration in that it can benefit the United States. And so I see this play out and I see violations or alleged violations of constitutional rights and liberties, and it's grossly concerning to me. And I know that we as a country can do better. So I see the Trump administration take these avenues, and I question their true motives for doing this.
Well, you realize then that it can be applied anywhere and to anyone, almost anyone. Wayne Unger, Associate Professor of Law, good to have you with us this morning. Thanks again for coming back.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. Always a pleasure.
If you like that video, make sure to subscribe to the Your Morning YouTube feed, where you can find all kinds of new content posted every weekday morning.